Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
and we are back again today to talk Stranger Things 4, Part 2.
That's a lot of numbers in a title.
It is. I was like, am I going to fuck this up as I'm going? If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, notification bell. That way you're up to date on all future episodes of Podcast 2 for 1, as well as all the cool content we have at 2 for 1 Studios. We have 2 for 1 Joe every Monday live at 9 a.m. Of course, youtube.com/2 for 1 Studios, the best place to consume the content. And of course, we're on all podcast services, Podcast 2 for 1. And if you didn't know, and boy, oh boy.
Ooh, that was a close one.
I know. If you didn't know, boy, oh boy, blah, 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 blah. We are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue, Sherwood, Arkansas. There they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow.
Kapow.
If you had actually forgotten, I would have still whispered kapow after your spiel.
That's good.
And like that, yeah, I would have done it.
You should have.
And you would have been
Even-
like, oh shit.
Even Joel was doing kapows at the end of 2 for
Hell
1
yeah.
Joe's. Yeah, so it's a thing now. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel. So we,
Hmm.
I think last time we talked a couple weeks ago, Stranger Things Part 1, or Stranger Things 4 Part 1 was out, and which is a good solid 7 episodes. These are longer episodes than we've gotten in previous seasons. We both had
Like
a lot
10
of
hours almost.
yeah, we
for
had a lot
7
of praise
episodes.
for this Part 1, and
Mhm.
we were both super excited for Part 2 to drop, and we finally reached that point. And I've got to
Yes.
say, this is, spoilers, one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen.
Wow. That's
has to
high,
be.
like you would put this up with True Detective season 1.
One of the best seasons
a
of
tier
television.
below that, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, that almost gets a pass because it's standalone.
Okay.
And it's also like God
Limited
tier.
series kind of thing.
But I mean, I'm saying, like, just here's a few things that's got going for it. It's the 4th
Yep.
season of a show. Typically, shows don't get better as they go on. The rare finds like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and some of the other shows that are kind of like The Sopranos or whatever. They're in the pantheon of, like, they typically find their stride early on, and they end up getting better and better and better. It's not always the case. And I think Stranger Things season 4 overall it's just like what I enjoy about just cinema and character development and relationships and storytelling in general. And so to me, it's like, this is like Stranger Things firing on all cylinders. I know that there was people in the beginning, and I wasn't part of this because I hadn't caught up yet, but when Stranger Things Part 1 dropped, it was kind of like, I'm not really feeling this season, blah, blah, blah.
Really?
I never felt that way. I was kind of in from the get-go. And
Well, I would say
yeah,
the first couple episodes were a little slow to get started.
they are,
But
but
once the main plot picked up, I was in for sure.
yeah, but I think you and me both had this. We saw like the machine working, and we
Yeah.
saw that the things they were doing in these first couple episodes were important. And
They were.
And I didn't feel like I was being like drug along or whatever. I was like, okay, this feels like the necessary work to get me where I need to be at the end. In the end,
Yeah.
Daniel, is episode 8 is an hour and a half, which we were getting
Episode
close
9.
to.
Oh, sorry, you're talking about the
Episode 8,
penultimate?
yeah.
Yeah.
Episode 8, hour and a half, and then episode 9 is 2.5 hours,
Yeah.
which is wild. It's longer than the
Almost-
Thor movie we just watched last night. This $200 million blockbuster we just watched last night.
Wow, you're right. You're right. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I would say that I had really high expectations for this finale, and I do have a couple nitpicky things about it that I think it didn't quite live up to the build up a little bit in some areas, or the way that they kind of I don't know. There was just some things that
You're
felt
breaking
plot
my
related
heart.
instead of character driven. But overall, I thought it was fantastic. The highlights for me is obviously Eddie's solo in the Upside Down. That was just amazing. As
The
someone
most
who used
metal
to be in
concert ever,
as
apparently.
someone who used to be in a rock bands in high school, like it was very it was just badass in every way. That's like the metal badass, all of those things. And I'm as far as kind of where the season ends and like going into the next season, I mean, it's very clearly setting up a final season. And obviously we've known that season 5 was the final one for a while.
Yeah.
It's the most cliffhangery of an ending we've had yet with these. And I think, I'm very interested to see what they do with season 5, because they've already come out and said it's going to be less episodes because we don't need those first couple episodes that season 4 needed
Right.
to. Where is everyone now? What's the new normal? Like that was what those first 2 episodes were doing. Basically, was just getting us reacquainted with the characters, introducing the new ones, setting the stage. And this season sets the stage for season 5, which is also, I feel like we've heard rumors that there's going to be a time jump for season 5, which now feels, I don't quite understand how that would work.
I don't
unless
either.
they're like jumping to an apocalyptic future where the Upside Down won and they're like time traveling or some shit. I mean, like going like full on like I mean, that's like
In-game?
that's like a superhero, in game kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I did toy with that. Are they going to jump like 2, 3 years in the future where they're kind of caught up with their ages? But it's like the world is kind of like in a more Mad Maxy kind of hybrid kind of thing.
Yeah.
You're right. They don't have to do much build up anymore to lead into season 5. Before we talk about the future,
Okay.
let's talk about the things. I really want to hear what the things that didn't work for you first. Then we'll talk about the things
Yeah.
that did. So I'm curious as to your
Sure.
thoughts on this. And I may agree with you. I think that just for me, the sum outweighed the whole
Yeah,
outweighed
and
the
I
sum of
think,
those parts. Yeah.
and that's true for me too. Honestly, these are more nitpicky things that if I could change a couple things, this is what I would change. But I think overall, the emotional beats that they hit were right on. We got these like great battles moments. We had these great like a character reaching deep inside of them to find the power, to find the will to succeed. There's some great tension, especially at the climax of episode 9 of who's going to die, what is actually going to happen here, and they faked us out a couple times too. So I think the things for me, I thought episode 8 was good. I didn't think it was the best penultimate episode because I really felt like episode 8 was really only about 11. Like I felt like kind of the side stuff felt everyone else was just setting the stage for the next episode. It was like we're just moving the chess pieces around so that everything's right for episode 9. And then 11 was like, okay, this is one of her defining moments as a character, right? Like this is her leaving Papa or watching him die or finding, finally understanding herself in a deeper way. And then her finally kind of breaking out of this prison to come home. And that's just a big and like destroying the helicopter, all that. And so like, it was good. It was just like, honestly, the break between episode 7 and 8 felt so weird because episode 8 picked up the second that episode 7 ended. Like they're still like pulling people through the hole with the bedsheet thing. And I was like, I think part of me was like, well, I wish I just could have binged this because like not had the month gap just because it felt a little strange. Like I almost wish I'd watched the last episode again.
Yeah, I don't really ever believe or think that they had intended to have a
No.
break. I mean, I think from what we've heard that they
very clear.
They were like, hey, we needed more time to do these last 2 big ass episodes and we wanted to get it out there.
I'm sure they were working on the CG like to the last second.
Oh, probably. And that's the thing too, is like, honestly though, I think it benefited Netflix in a big bad way. Like you had that build up and you had like 2 extra weeks there where Stranger Things was still in the zeitgeist without
marketing wise. Well, Stranger Things like again like set a top 5 streaming minutes record for the week. Just like they did it with the first part of season 4 and they just did it again with the second part. And that's only 2 episodes.
It wouldn't surprise me if they And they've been doing this in general with like Ozark and other things, or even like
Yeah.
AMC did it with Better Call Saul and also with Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
split this last season up into like
Oh,
3 parts or something,
oh,
which I'll
surely
be
not 3. God damn, please don't do 3. But at least 2 would make sense. I would get 2.
like 4 and
Um,
2 or something, like or
or
5 and
just 3
2.
and 3. I mean, I could see either way, but I really hope that they kind of write for it. Like they have it in mind and write for it, because I think that if you do it right, if you leave like a big cliffhanger that isn't like, oh, someone's being like falling off a cliff and my hand is slipping. That's like kind of like that's literally a cliffhanger, right? Like that's kind of on the nose
Literally,
cliffhanger.
yeah,
Versus like just building up this lots of tension and setting the stage, and then it's like the face off is happening and they're about, just I don't know, a more planned break, I think
yeah.
would benefit it. I think the other things that were really let's talk about the finale with 11 facing Vecna. I was
Mhm.
and I understand it now better after finishing the episode, but I was a little disappointed that 11 didn't get back to Hawkins. I like that she they pull over, they do like the ice, the salt bath thing. I was wanting a like in real life 1-on-1 11 versus Vecna battle. And now that we understand Vecna more, we understand that he is the Mind Flayer or created the Mind Flayer, or whatever that relationship is. Obviously, they're saving that for the finale, like the final
Yes,
season. That makes sense. I get it. So I can
yes.
understand. I can give that part a pass. I thought that the way, so what I was rewatching before we started was the
Mhm.
kind of like when 11 finally saves Max. Like Max is dying, bones are breaking, but she breaks out, hits Vecna, and then they throw the fire bottles on him and stuff. And I think so. The way she succeeds is because Will shows Mike a painting he did of their D&D party and says, "You're the heart," which to me is a very vague statement. And I honestly feel like Mike has not been the heart of this season at all. He's just been a
I
side
agree with
character.
you. I agree with you.
And then him saying, like, him just encouraging 11 is all she needed to defeat Vecna, which is just a little bit weak to me. Like, it's just like, that's what you needed to succeed. Like, she wasn't enough on her own. She needed Will whispering in her ear, "You can do it. I believe in you." And I just
Yeah.
like,
I think part of that too was lost because the very beginning of the season is wrapped up in this. They've been apart. They've
mm-hmm.
been,
Yeah.
she's sending letters or vice versa, and he's not saying "I love you." And the thing is, these episodes are so long, and they don't, we kind of don't touch on that. She's being bullied, Mike and her's relationship ever again
Well,
until,
they're just good after they save her, right? They're
yeah.
just fine now.
Well, I mean, until all the way to the end. You know what I'm saying? So like that nugget, that thread there, especially if you binge it like, or if you don't binge it like consecutively, like in a day, if you're like
Yes.
a week, couple weeks apart, it's too long
Which
ago.
everyone
Like,
was at least a month apart between,
yeah,
a few of these episodes. So
exactly. Yeah. And so like to me, that wasn't a strong enough thread. That's a very classical, cheesy kind of trope, which I'm all for, but it
yes,
wasn't executed in a super strong way. I agree
it
with you
wasn't
100%.
completely supported from the buildup of the season. Like if you watch the first half of the season and think, how are they going to win? No one would predict that because there was nothing that we got from Will's character or Mike's character in the first, part one
Yeah.
that would tell us, oh yeah, he's going to be the key to, you know what I mean?
It should have, yeah. I was gonna
Go
say it
ahead.
should have
Go ahead.
been tied more to her and Vecna's relationship, or her and Papa's relationship.
Yeah,
And
I
there was
completely agree.
and there was some other thing that hadn't been quite resolved. Maybe like Papa says something to her that we don't hear when he's dying, and you finally hear it when she's in her lowest point. Something that kind of
Yeah,
pushes her over the edge.
exactly.
Super Saiyan mode. There's
That
something there.
agreed. I just that was a little bit weak to me. And
Sure,
again, you're right.
I
Like
get it.
there has been like other on the nose cheesy things in the series, like in this season that that's 80s, right? We've chalked that up to kind of 80s nostalgia.
Right.
That's what we're going for. But and this one is kind of that way, but it's also like the weakest version of it we've gotten in this season. Like
Yeah, I agree.
it's the least supported, the least like kind of interesting version of any of that we've got. And so that was one thing. I'll say too, I saw you posting about the scene in the field where Eddie and Dustin are play
Yes.
fighting, and I think it's a great scene too. When that scene was playing, I was convinced Steve was dead. Like Steve was goner. Like I don't
Yeah.
know, it was just something in it. I was just like, they're gonna kill Steve, and it was kind of breaking my heart. But then also like, man, that would actually be a great twist. That like they bring in Eddie, this character that everyone assumes going to die by either the gun wielding high school basketball team or Vecna. Like it's just like he's the obvious one to die. He's the new one. But wouldn't it be a great twist if they killed a core character and then like season 5 can be like for Steve, like that can be kind of this rallying cry for the rest of these characters kind of thing. And like
Yeah.
he's a martyr of the War of the Upside Down. And we've been, it becomes such a more like the stakes would feel more big, I guess, if we lost a core character. And we almost did with Max, but
Couple things I'll add on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say I think the death of Eddie was just a little too predictable. Like I wish, and also his death was too drawn out. Like it's like compared to what the Bats did to Steve in like 5 seconds the first time they saw him, and they're just like chilling, doing circles around him or like running into his shield and not trying to attack him from the back. It felt a little bit like let's just amp up, let's just stretch this moment out as long as possible. And part of that too is like, how long were Steve and the girls tied up to that wall? Like 45 minutes.
Oh,
You know
for
what I
Eddie
mean?
Munson, dude, he had the power of rock and roll on his side, first of all.
Yeah, listen, he is probably he's probably my favorite character this whole season. Like if I had to pick one character,
He is my favorite
he's
character.
probably
yeah.
my favorite one. And part of that too is like
and
I would
Steve.
love to see him come back. And he is kind of this like he's Steve without being rich and popular. I feel
Yeah.
like in so many ways, right? And yeah,
Yeah.
I just thought it was
No,
a
I
little
agree with
predictable.
you.
Like I was like, man, I think it would have been a more interesting choice to
I
kill
agree with
Steve, break
you.
everyone's hearts, and then it's like now everyone's like pissed at Vecna for season, like in a way that's like this got so much more personal than it already was, kind of thing.
No, I think you're right on the way he died, the longevity of that. I think you're right on that. I wasn't convinced that he was going to die, first of all, and I think
I wasn't either.
I think it goes both ways. I think one, I mean, and it did work for them because there's Save Eddie Munson. Like Eddie has been like this huge meme now of like how awesome he was. He's gone, how torn up we are about it, and to have that little screen time. I mean, he had a lot, but
Yeah,
throughout the season to be a new character, he really
yeah,
grabbed everyone's hearts and attention. He grabbed mine.
fantastic performance.
He
Just
did. He did amazing.
maybe the best
And
performance of the season. Again, probably
it
the
could
best
be.
acting.
It could
Yeah.
be. So having Eddie, I wasn't convinced he was going to die. I didn't know who was going to die, if anyone did. But now I think it does. So either two things: either A, you kill off Eddie, which wasn't convinced of, or B, you kill off Steve or somebody, which you do have that. Everyone's still upset, of course, and everyone's going in with revenge. But now we are going into Stranger season 5, thinking like this is the last season, and there has to be casualties, like has to
Oh
be
yeah.
serious core character casualties. And so
I
now
think
it's like
Steve will probably die in season 5, like in
I
the
really
final
hope he
battle or
don't.
something.
I do also.
Yeah, me either. I love him.
They've also said this, and they didn't have to tell me this. I knew this without them ever saying this. But they said that this isn't Game of Thrones, and we're not looking to just kill people just to kill people. And because that's an 80s trope, that's a thing like where people walk off in the sunset. And I'm hoping we get a decent version of that. I don't know if everyone will
Sure.
survive, but I think most of them will survive it. At least the core character, at least the
11
original
and
4 or
Mike
5. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the original 4 will probably it'll be almost like of an end game or something, where the original 4 Avengers are the last ones to fight.
Yeah.
Or
I could see
the
Mike
original
dying.
4 plus 11, right?
Or not Mike. I could see who has the worst bowl cut of all
Will.
time? Will.
Will.
I can see Will dying because he's always been this outcast and he's got a huge
When he's
connection
like
to the
still
Upside Down.
infected somehow. Yeah.
Right. I see Will dying. I see
Yeah.
Will's brother dying because they basically killed him already this season. And then I see
Will's
Steve
brother?
his older brother, the one
They almost killed him?
he wasn't in the show. He had no arc or anything this year.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what
no,
I'm saying
he was
he was
yeah.
non-irrelevant,
No.
and it's just also like it's clearly that they're not going to work out ever, which is it's not a problem. Like it was cute the first two seasons, even season three I
Mhm.
thought was good, but now it's like it feels like real life where people they change and grow and they make different paths, and
I
I
think they're
like it.
setting up for a Steve and Nancy
Oh,
reunion in season
100%.
5.
Yeah, that's going to
Yeah,
happen. Yeah,
yeah.
and absolutely, and they've made Steve go from this like unlikable kind of jock guy to the dad of the group,
Oh,
where he's got
yeah.
his kids and he's protecting the
Yeah,
kids. Don't mess with my
yeah.
kids. It's
Great.
fucking incredible. Um,
It is. It's amazing.
yeah, it's awesome. So the Eddie Munson thing, I think that it could have went either way. I'm really torn up about it just because I liked him so much.
Yeah,
I doubt they'll
yeah.
bring him back just because that's not a thing they've typically done in the show so far is bring back.
If they do, it'll be like an upside down zombie version like Billy was, I feel like.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like if they didn't bring back Billy, like actually bring him back, and Hopper was kind of always the classic. I didn't see him die, so I don't know if he's
We never
dead.
they showed us that he was alive at the stinger for that
You're
season.
right. You're right. They did. You're right. So
And yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no,
Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say I do feel like this show, and this is something that I'm pulling from another review that I read and I agree with. This show does for its unwillingness to kill core characters, it really likes to fake us out all the time that it's killing core characters, like
Hmm.
all the time. Like Will Byers is seemingly dies at the end of season 1. You know, like when they find him in the Upside Down, he's not breathing, he's dead, but then they revive him.
Yeah,
Hopper is a great example. Hopper sacrifices himself, and literally you just wait till the end of the credits to be like, nah, just kidding. He
yeah,
survives somehow.
yeah,
And then here with Max, I think it is again where it's like, wow, they're about to kill Max. They're about to kill a core character. That even like I think Eddie had already maybe died by that or was dying, and so I was like, okay, well, they're still gutsy enough to like to do this, like to make that's a risk, right? It's such a huge risk, potentially killing off a fan favorite of any kind. Um, and then again, it was like, oh, but she barely survives. But then it's this like weird thing of like, is she brain dead? Because like 11's like inside her mind and can't find her, which she's obviously not brain dead. She will wake up because she's still there, right? Like they
right.
wouldn't keep her just to be comatose for all of season 5. So yeah, I just think in those areas, I do wish it was a little more risky. And I think that combined with, like I talked about earlier with the whole Mike is the heart of the group and encouraging 11, I think everything was great. It was all building up. And then just the finale of it just was like, okay, like it's good. It's good. I just think it could have been a little bit better if we had just been a little more risky in some areas, or,
Sure.
you know,
It does feel like this is. It's like Infinity War without the huge loss of the Avengers. It's like the end of it is obviously
yes,
they won in some way, right? The Upside Down has infected the actual like they've crossed over a little bit. Like there's
yes,
Armageddon's
there's some
coming.
sort of spillage. Yeah,
There
it
is some
hasn't
sort of
fully cracked,
spillage.
but
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think that having some other key death or whatever would have been I mean, it would have been a more big send off into 5, and also,
yeah,
but the thing is, also they really wanted to kind of have everyone's like she's seeing Hopper again, 11 seeing Hopper again. They
yeah,
wanted all these connections, kind of like like we're wrapping up a book, right, an actual novel, but we still want to give you a tease of what's to come. So it was kind of this weird juxtaposition of like they didn't fully dive into like Empire Strikes Back, Infinity
right.
War level kind of cliffhanger. But I mean, I wasn't that upset about it. And like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. If they had done something more meta like that, it would been I would have been okay with it. Like, I mean, I would have been totally happy or fine with it.
Yeah.
Um, I
I
think
also think it would have just been so interesting to have like this rekindled Nancy Steve relationship, and then like as you might see her considering wanting to be with Steve again,
he
he died. Like
died.
I just think that's heartbreaking in like a really dramatic way that like is
Well, there's like
compelling for her character.
billboards of like don't like say like don't kill Steve like out there. People have bought and paid for it.
Listen, I get it, but at the same time, like one of the reasons we remember Game of Thrones is that they don't just kill characters to kill characters. They kill characters to tell really dramatic stories. And like like the Red Wedding, when it happens in Game of Thrones, it is like jaw on the floor, not just because
Yeah.
they killed a bunch of named characters, but because of like what is happening in the world of Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
what the implications are, like all this stuff, you know,
And to
and
be
just the
fair,
surprise of it.
I was talking more about the last season of like of characters dying. I feel like
Yes.
last season is more shock value and also just not great send offs.
Are you talking about Game of
Versus
Thrones?
Yes, versus
Oh,
like
it's
the Red Wedding, where it's like
trash.
that's the perfect example of like it's shocking. It tells you the state of the world. It
Yes.
repaints the show in a lot of ways because now you're losing core
Yes.
characters. Like that's
Yes.
different. I agree with that.
And I'll just say, like I did mention, I don't know if I mentioned this on the pod, but like I was rewatching the climax of episode 9, and there's 45 minutes left. Like
Yeah.
as Vecna is falling out of the window onto the
Wow.
ground, like being defeated, there's 45 minutes left. And a lot of that is what you're talking about, these like epilogue moments, these reunion moments. And I think,
Wow.
and again, I get it. I get that we're setting this all up for season 5, but I was really hoping that Hopper would show up at the last second and not like how they did it. Like again, like the whole thing where like, oh, if we just kill these Demogorgons, that'll distract them. I was like, will it? I mean,
It
I
was definitely
guess.
a like, hey, it's movie logic of like, man, if we did this thing, like also everyone always has omnipotent like intelligence in terms of like how these things work, what we can
Like
do
hive
to,
mind.
well,
Yeah.
like the characters do. They're always like, oh man, it's like Dustin. It's like the thing where like,
Yes.
this is how it works. Like that must be it. There's no question of like, are we wrong? We're always right in terms of like
Right.
figuring it out, right?
Well, it's
And
just too, it's like they get out of the prison just to go right back in. And that's just a little bit like boring of like a like then it just becomes, well, like I understand from a character logic they think they need to escape and then they realize they don't have time, whatever. But that's what you chose to do with them with the writing. You know what I'm saying? And I feel
sure,
like there was a more interesting choice out there than let's let them escape and then go right back in to where we've already been for like 3 episodes and have them do just kill the Demogorgons. That's all they're gonna. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
just
but they get a pass like Thor does in Infinity War. Like to Bruce's point that he brought on the podcast, episode 149, everybody, or episode 150. Oh, did my camera
uh
go out?
I
Interesting.
guess so.
Can
I'm
you
the
can you?
only one here.
There we
Oh, there you
go.
are.
I'm back. Could you
That
hear
was
me for a
funny.
second? That was
No,
weird.
yeah, you were audio was there.
Interesting. That's never happened before. I think it's because my iPad kicked on and like
Ah,
I was charging it, and for some reason it like switched the cameras. It's really
hmm,
weird.
interesting.
Anyway, yeah, I think it's like that point I said to Bruce then is like if
Mm.
there's some narrative logic that can be broken if the thing that happens is badass enough. And Hopper wielding Conan the Barbarian sword is badass
Yeah.
enough. It's like that's
That is
good enough.
cool. Yeah,
And
you're right. It was
it
really
did
cool.
give Winona Ryder's character some parallels with her and Sam Austin or Sean Austin and
Yeah.
like his death
Right,
in season
right.
2. And so we kind of got that a little bit. I kind of feel like she doesn't really have the best arcs ever any season. She to me, and I don't even think she's the best actress in the show at all. Like I don't
No,
know, like everyone kind of
she's
always
good,
praises her, and I'm
but
like I just don't really like her character too much or anything like that. But I like her relationship with Hopper, just because I like Hopper. But I don't think she's
yeah.
that great. But anyway, I mean her. I love, of course, I like all those people in that area, and it worked for me. It is kind of weird they've been separated the whole season, but I'll say this: what was so impressive to me, and this is why and I feel like that last episode is so long, is like there's so much cross cutting back and forth between all these stories in the finale, and you brought up the point that like they're tied up, for a very long time, which of course I felt that too about like, man, they've been tied up. How are they breathing still? I felt that too,
Yeah. Well, I was like, I
but
thought it was strangling them when it first got them, but I guess it
I
was
did
just
too.
holding them very tightly.
Yeah, I don't know which one either. But I do feel like they did a great job of cross cutting like they have all season, but this is like even more so the montages with the music, with all those things.
Yeah.
They did a great job. And I do, even though I thought it was cool how they like took care of Vecna, they had the shotguns, they had the Molotov cocktails, they have all these things are happening. Like Hopper's doing their thing, Eleven's doing her thing.
Yeah.
I do kind of wish that you're right. Vecna may have won versus because now it's
Yeah,
like now that he lost, it's like it kind of
kind of.
takes his power.
Yeah.
It takes his power away a little bit in terms of like I doubt he's gonna win season 5. It would blow my mind if he won season 5, right?
Oh
Like he
no, no, no.
right.
Of course he won't. No,
And
of
so
course not.
I think and they were trying to do that like Infinity War they lost with like the upside down breaking over, but I think it'd have been almost stronger if they had went Vecna won and the upside down broke over and we do have like a apocalyptic season like shorter season 5 where it's like this is the end game, the heroes are backs against the wall. I do
You're
agree
right.
with that.
It feels like a half step in that direction, right? Because they
Mhm.
didn't fully kill Max, but she is in a coma. They didn't fully stop Vecna because the cracks still opened a lot and like the town is ruined and
Yeah.
everyone is leaving in mass. But I guess they won enough that he couldn't fully break through, I guess. But it
I feel
did
like he
seem that
did
like
break I
the
feel like he
vision
did
that
break
Nancy,
through.
when he showed Nancy that vision and was like,
Yeah.
tell this to 11, which also I'm like, do you not know that 11's not in Hawkins? Like, were you just like unaware of where she is? Like, you think she's just
I,
hanging out?
I think
He's like,
so.
just
Yeah.
show 11 this. Um, yeah. Anyway, yeah, it looks pretty much exactly what actually happened. Like what like his plan,
I mean, I
right?
think it is.
Happened.
I think it. I mean, we were. I mean, I was saying spilling over. I think it happened the way he wanted it to happen. I don't think that there
Yeah.
was. I think that's
I mean, I
it.
think
I
if
mean,
Max had fully died, it would have just like split open all across the earth. I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, it looked like it connected the 4 portals and spots, created
Yeah.
an X. I mean, I feel like it did what he
And
needed it to do.
you're right.
It was pretty metal whenever that started happen. Like the split started happening and the jaw got ripped in half. The guy who
Yeah.
like everyone
That
hates.
was
That's a sweet death.
very like like I did not expect him for one to die just because he was a pretty good antagonist and he would
Yeah.
there is an interesting arc you could do with him in season 5 where he like realizes he was fucking wrong and like you know what I mean I think he was a good antagonist because like honestly his perspective was believable.
Right.
Like someone that did not know about the upside down that hadn't been on these experiences in the 80s where everything is a satanic cult and the dead like that
Yeah.
actually feels
Right.
like a real person. And
Mhm.
you of course don't like him because he's violent, but there's also this like, yeah, but I do get it a little bit. Like
Yeah,
I
I agree.
can't say I wouldn't be acting similarly if I was under the same circumstances.
Yeah, his
Like
girlfriend
just
gets
kind of like,
murdered. The person
yeah,
he
you think there's
supposedly
like a
loves.
satanic like all the
Yeah.
evidence points to like this, satanic acting dude that's like calling the devil. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, exactly. And so yeah, I thought that was an interesting choice.
I liked it
Yeah,
because
I
it
think
was unexpected. It was visually cool, and
it
it kind of
was.
got
No,
it,
it
it got
was.
him off the
And
board for
there's
what they were leading
satisfaction
into.
there. Like there's like
Yeah,
this, yeah, fuck you kind of moment
yeah,
with
there
it,
was.
right? Just
Yeah,
because he was such a
yeah.
dick, especially at the end, like choking out why can't I remember his name?
I can't remember
Max's
any of the
boyfriend.
kids' names
Yeah.
ever.
Um
Which was that was
but
another
anyway,
piece of the pie. That was like another. Yeah,
Lucas.
Lucas was doing that. There was 11 fighting Vecna. There was
And I'll say
Steve and them. There was
when he's
Dustin and
crying about
oh yeah,
that's the best performance he's given on this show ever, probably.
I agree.
His grief there is believable as fuck. And he just acts his heart out.
Before we've kind of talked a little bit longer about things we didn't like than I thought we
Sure.
would. I just want to talk. I just want to talk. I mean, real quick. I don't want this to be a super long pod, but you mentioned this earlier, but I made a post about it on Facebook, and there was something about that scene when they're they're in the field, and Dustin or Eddie are sitting there, and like they're circling each other, and it's like this play fighting between brothers, and the dialogue and the music and the blocking, and just the way it ends with like he tells him, "I love you, man," and all those things. I was like, I'm getting chills talking about it. I was just like, man, that is why I watch movies, is because that felt it felt real, but also it felt magical, like the way a movie can make something. Like that moment is too perfect for real life, and but it felt like a perfect movie moment, and it was like, man, this is just so good, and I don't know, I love that. I thought it was just so endearing,
No, I completely agree. I thought the guy that plays Dustin Henderson, I don't know the actor's name offhand, but like he's one of the most consistent actors. Like he just has great chemistry with everyone. But him and Eddie specifically, like he's always had good chemistry with Steve, but Steve has always been like he's popular and Dustin doesn't seem destined for popularity. You know, he kind of seems destined for like the nerdy guy of the group, like forever, you know, just kind of like that's his vibe. And I felt like Eddie was more like what Dustin could grow into. Like
Right.
Eddie's an actual person that Dustin may become versus Steve's a little too smooth still, a little too cool for Dustin to ever quite get that cool. It's unlikely.
Even with Steve saying like, you know, like he's not getting the girls lately, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, whatever, you know, like
I know. He's like, you're literally the hottest
whatever.
person in this town. Shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever, dude. You know, I'll say this too, like, not more complaints, but Mike, I really feel like he was on the back burner this season, especially considering to me he was the gateway into the show. Like it was him kind of leading the pack in the first season. It was him finding the relationship with Eleven.
We're like,
and I do wonder what they're going to do with him in season 5, and also like, I mean, like, what's his arc? I mean, like you said earlier, Lucas, he had a good arc this year. Is kind of like, what is it? The family I want or the family I think I want? Dustin, you know, did we see Dustin's girlfriend this year? We did. They helped
the pizza guys, but it's like right. One scene. So
yeah, Dustin. I mean, Dustin doesn't really have a super strong arc. I mean, I don't think other than like, I don't know, like what's his arc?
You know, it's interesting because Dustin is like kind of this like happy-go-lucky. He's kind of like perfectly innocent.
Well, he always knows who he is. Like he's not.
Yes, and
he doesn't need an arc, you know.
And I think it works because of the chemistry he has with other characters, for one.
Right.
And those characters often have very strong arcs. Steve had one of the strongest arcs of the first few seasons. Probably the strongest arc of like season 1. You know, going from the typical jock bully to like the dad. You know, like that was a big arc.
And this season feels like it's either he's recognizing that he has changed and that he can maybe allow himself to go for Nancy again or to, that kind of feels like it's like an intermediate arc this for him, but it's really good. Yeah.
And that is one thing I praise the show for. I like that they didn't feel like they had to wrap up all of the arcs this season. They left the love triangle is dangling still. We don't know what's going to happen for that in season 5. We don't know exactly happen. Yeah, I know. We don't know exactly the fate of Max, even though we know what's going to happen.
I wonder if Max would be like an Oracle situation where she's blind, she's like in a wheelchair the rest of her life, but she has like some type of psychic connection now to the Upside Down. Like I keep thinking about that for some reason. So yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think she's gonna have somewhat of a even if like I think you're right. Even if she's revived, she's gonna be like disabled for the rest of her life, or something like that.
Which is like very Stephen King-y.
I do get it. Like you have a show. I mean, I know we had like probably 15 hours of Stranger Things in the season. I don't know. There's a lot of hours a lot of minutes. And you have like 20 core main characters, or like you can't give all of them a good arc. It's not going to work. You don't have enough time. Even with 15 hours of content, that's not enough time to give them all satisfying arcs.
Yeah, right.
And I do remember Dustin having good arc. Like I think the season where he finds his girlfriend, he's got a pretty good arc of like everyone's coupling off and he hasn't found anyone and he's kind of feeling alone and like is there someone for me out there kind of thing.
I think TV does do sometimes, especially for these ensemble casts, is that some seasons feel like they pick some characters and they try to push them along to their final journey versus other characters. Some shows are like, this is Walter White, and we're going to follow Walter White from the beginning, and there's other characters, but it's his story. But ensemble stuff, it does feel like kind of like even Game of Thrones is a decent example. We're going to follow a certain character. Like Jon Snow becomes more prevalent later, and we get him less in the beginning, and like that kind of thing. And I do wonder how they're going to stick the landing with Mike and Elle. 100%. I just don't know if
their relationship isn't that interesting right now. It doesn't feel like great. Like it's like
love at first sight. let's kid love at first
Yeah,
sight, and they don't have the greatest chemistry just
and
because
that
Elle can't even do that much with like her type of character, you know?
yeah, and I do feel like there was a little bit of like he talks about in that speech to 11 about finding her that day in the woods and how it was fate or whatever, and I was just like, okay, a little bit like, again, that just is a little, again, it felt like they were trying to really force the Mike's importance in this
Yes,
season
that's
when
why I'm afraid
he
of.
just wasn't important, honestly. Like he just, I feel like it's a more interesting thing that 11 finds it within herself the power to defeat Vecna, rather than making her kind of need Mike to do it, which is just a little bit
I mean, it's
typical
classic. I mean, it's
in
very
in a
like,
way that's in a way that isn't like that has aged poorly. Some of these things that are classics that are like nostalgic. Oh, that's fun. This one, it feels like, yeah, that is how everything used to be, but like it wasn't good then either. Even though we all just that was the only thing
I
we knew.
disagree. I think that it's fine if it's done correctly. I mean, look at Avengers Endgame. We win because we win together. That's what that is.
Yes, but it's not. I feel like
It's
it's the
not it,
romantic. It's the romantic one. That part of like, well, I just needed my boyfriend to tell me that it was fate that we met and that I'm awesome. You know.
well, yeah, when you say it like that,
Well,
it's
it's what happened. It's what
well,
happened.
I said that it wasn't the best version of it. I said that it
Yeah,
can be done in a good way.
I
But
I I
I
agree. I don't
agree
think
it's
that's.
not strong. It's
I
not
think
strong.
I think I was specifically referring to like, and I mean maybe this, it's a little bit feminist theory, but it's like, well, the girl superhero needed her normal ass boyfriend to be there for her in order for her to like become the ultimate version of herself, and that's just a little bit like, okay, well, fine.
I
um
agree. It's weak.
I
Uh,
just wish it would have been like, no, she's 11. She just is this, and she finds her like she go like, honestly, it's like I was hoping more for like a straight up Goku kind of moment where like you pissed 11 off too much, and now she's gone to 12. You know what I mean? And like, get out of the way.
that's great. That's funny. That's good. I like that. No, I agree. And I think that that's all. I was always kind of curious as to what her powers could be, what they'll be visually, because like picking things up and throwing them only gets you so far.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to what that might look like in season 5 if we do get, like I don't ever imagine them punching each other, even though I think it could be cool.
No, it'll be a
But
force powers fight kind of thing.
yeah, so I do wonder, and like they kind of got away with it with like having the shotguns and the Molotov cocktails, and then force
Sure.
pushing him and all these other things. Um,
I've got a
I'll
question
say
for you.
this. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, you finish your thought. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say this real. We don't have to talk about this too deep, but like I just want to talk overall the season, especially like I really I felt it throughout the whole thing, but whenever she's dealing with the helicopter and Papa
Yeah,
and in the desert, like it felt like a straight up movie.
it
Like
did.
it just like the cinematography has been on point this year. It's been on point most of the whole show, but like it just felt
Mm-hmm.
cinematic in a
It
different way.
did.
And even the brothers have said we've tried really hard this year to be like as cinematic as possible. And I'm like, you did it. And that's the
No,
thing
they
too,
did.
is like seeing that and then seeing like even Thor. We watched it last night, which guys, our review will be out sometime next week. There's just something, it's wild to me that these people have just as much money for, they're spending way more per minute on Thor, but the
Yeah.
MCU does have this problem where a lot of the times things don't feel cinematic.
No. I feel
Like
like the CGI jungles.
it does. I mean, like you look at like something like Infinity War and Endgame, they feel cinematic.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They feel fantastic. But then you have some things like Thor and even Doctor Strange, and a lot of it is they're literally piecemealing edits and reshoots and CGI at the ass.
Yes.
But there's still, even Spider-Man No Way Home, I think it's closer to Endgame than like Doctor Strange. But even then, to me,
Right.
it feels like there's moments I'm like, I would have reframed that differently. It feels like we're having a two
Mm-hmm.
shot with like
Right.
characters on a green screen
Basic two
sometimes.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Agreed. Agreed.
there's animatics for No Way Home that had the three Spider-Men together. I'm like, that is a way more interesting, visually cool shot than what we got when they're
Mm-hmm.
landing on the Statue of Liberty, which is fine. But when you look at that, it don't look that great composed. Like I love the shot because
It's
I get what I get,
yes,
but there's so many
I agree.
more interesting ideas you could do that's cool looking. But anyway,
I agree.
Stranger Things is nailing that. They're nailing it. So
They are.
really
I mean, it
impressed.
feels Spielbergy the way
It
their
does.
camera moves all the time. There's just like these big moving. The scenes like will be really long takes where we're just moving between characters, and like it's become a meme, and I love it. But that scene where they're like trying to find music for Nancy, and Eddie's
Oh
like,
yeah,
"This is
this
music," and he's
music.
holding
Yeah,
like the Iron Maiden cassette
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever it was.
yeah. It's
I
great.
love like that scene is great, and that feels very Spielbergy. Like just like the camera moving here, but it's all these. It's not like handheld janky cam. It's real smooth,
Yeah,
like very planned movements. It's like we're doing everything in a very like intentional way in a specific way.
yeah,
The
and that
question I
makes
had for
it makes a difference. Sorry, Daniel. It makes a
oh, you're
difference
fine.
for this.
It's a
Like
big
that's what I
difference.
think people don't really 100% understand. I think, and even just like on the film, like film
Yeah,
students, everything you do informs the narrative. The
yeah,
camera movement is its own character, and that informs the
yes,
story you're telling. And when you have characters like in Thor or whatever, Doctor Strange, and they're
right,
just two people on a and there's good shots and good moments and good composed things sometimes. But a lot of times it
yeah,
feels like we're getting coverage, and we're like,
yes,
I
yeah.
mean, there's even like a picture for Thor Ragnarok when that was being shot, and there's literally like, I mean, not joking, 26 plus cameras on Chris Hemsworth, and I mean, it's like it looks like a spider
I
web
remember
rig,
that. I remember that. Yeah,
and it's like they're just shooting for absolute coverage, and it's like,
you're right. Yeah,
what's the point of even like you could just pick and
I
choose anything, and like it doesn't,
right. It's
it's not,
safe. It's safe.
it's
It's not. It's driven by safety and driven by
and
like
and fear
budget
and
too.
fear.
Like I mean, it's cheaper to shoot for coverage. It's cheaper to just
I
get
don't
your basic shots. I think
I don't
like
know.
rather
Is
than.
it? I mean, your
I mean,
edit is
I
longer
feel
in
like
terms of
when
the
you're doing
choices to
these really
pick.
like Spielbergy things, like I mean, I know that when I've done those kind of moves or been on set with those kind of moves, you do that take like 10 times, and then it's still not right. You do it another 10 times. You know what I mean? Because it's a dependent on the camera moving the right way and the actor hitting their mark and the actor's performance being right in that moment and the crew running cables and getting out of the way of the like it's much more intricate. It takes more time to get one shot than it does. You could probably shoot a whole coverage scene in the same
Sure,
time it could take to get one shot that's really cool.
you're. I'll agree with you, but I'll say this. Here's the flip side of that is that when if you have $200 million to spend,
Yeah,
you should be able to do these kind of more intricate things because you're going
agreed.
to have a stronger impact for the audience. You're going to tell your story better. And typically, if you do all those kind of things like Stranger Things is doing, you're going to have a bigger return on investment. And
I
two,
agree. I think
$200 million, there's no reason to not work that in the budget. There's no
no,
reason.
you're absolutely right. I think the
Anyway,
I feel like there's never a great I guess the only reason is budget that you should ever like try to do things at a less level than you have to. Like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
why aren't we trying to make every shot as fucking awesome as possible? And I do feel like that
yeah.
was a lot of what we got in Stranger Things. And I think that's a
Well, I mean,
huge
look at
like
the
every
Batman.
conversation felt cinema. Like again, you look at a show like Breaking Bad, right? And Breaking Bad is shot like real life. It feels almost documentary style. How like the lens is often very wide open. We get lots of like deep focus, right? Lots of just seeing things like you would see if you were just standing there, or these single camera angles where you watch this whole action sequence from one perspective, like you were just
Right,
standing in the room, right?
right.
Like and that works for that show because it wants to present like this could happen, right? Like this feels like it could have happened in our world, or maybe it has. Versus Stranger Things, where even every conversation has these slow pushes and these moves and the music swelling and like it has this cinematic rhythm to it that I think throughout the whole show is very like it should be praised. It's pretty wild how consistently good they were with that this whole season.
You're right, and I think the other flip side of the coin is like looking like the Batman, where every
Yes.
shot looks amazing, and it's more style over substance.
It
But
is. Yes.
everyone online, if you look at it, it feels like they think it's the second coming of Christ, the
Oh, I
masterpiece,
know. It's
because
boggling
they're
my
wrapped
mind a
up in
little
the
bit.
visuals and they're not really looking at the story, in my opinion.
No.
And I think like that's the other way where you go too far, right? So
Yes. Yes.
the,
This had
the
the
perfect
perfect balance.
scenario is like Infinity War, right? Where you get the visuals, the spectacle, the shot composition, but then you care about these characters. That movie's also an
Yes.
anomaly again. It's still kind of hard for me to just peg sometimes, even though we broke it down.
Yeah.
I still like feel like I can't wrap my head around how this
Sure.
movie worked. But ask me the question real quick, and we'll
Yeah.
we'll hop off here.
So we talked about in part one about kind of being disappointed that Vecna wasn't the big bad, right? That we had this character that was finally had a personal connection to 11. And we're like, well, if they beat him, who's like, I guess it's just the mind flayer for the final season, right? And, obviously they didn't do that, right? Vecna escapes. But before that, we learned that Vecna, I'm not exactly clear actually on the relationship. Like the mind flayer was just there. And then Vecna like started controlling it kind of, or like merged with it. It is somewhat like he is like the intelligence or the power behind it. I guess he's the one making it do shit. But what did you feel like? How did you feel about that? How did you feel about Vecna being like revealed to actually be the big bad, and then they just kind of let him, escape in a kind of classic the villain escapes way. Oh, this is where her body was, and it's just empty. Because I know that's for you was a criticism. Like you were like, oh, I'm kind of bummed that we got him now and not next season.
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think I'm so glad that he is the main antagonist. I think
I'm
that
too.
it is good that there's a couple of good and bad things both ways here. It's good that we use this season to build up this character to kind of finally
Yeah,
get all that out of the way. That way, season 5 can be just the big finale, right?
you're right.
That's good, and I love that. Again, once they introduce Vecna, now, I was like, how can they ever top this guy?
Right.
Just for the fact that he's got intelligence, he can communicate with the people, and he has, even though his
The
you know
backstory
his
is the big thing.
yeah his backstory, his like his wants and needs are very super villainy, but it's
Sure.
okay in the context of the show, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. My brother Cameron, he was telling me like I'm pretty sure he's the main bad guy because he has these spiders that he's obsessed with as a kid, and like the mind flares like spiders. And I was like, I was telling him, I was like, I hope so. Like I hope he is the main bad
Mm,
guy.
yeah.
So to get that reveal, I was I was happy with that. I felt a little less surprised. Like Elle was super surprised. Like he's been the
Right.
big bad the whole time. And to me, I was kind of like, well, this was like a subtle reveal to me.
Yeah.
Um, I like that. I like that it kind of again repaints the backstory that Elle is kind of the reason why this all
It
started.
does.
All these
Yeah.
things. I love that retroactive kind of button up thing. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing that I'm afraid of going into season 5
Mm.
is what was compelling to me this year was the mystery. The villain
Yes.
is figuring out why the villain is doing what he's doing and how he does what he does. Classic serial killer stuff. That's why it's true crime
Yeah.
so fun. But
Yeah.
the next year I'm like, okay, what is the story? Is it just we got to go kill Vecna, which is it
Yeah.
has to be, right? And it's like, but what's the thing that we got to do to kill him? So like that thing has to be super strong. Like it has to be super fun,
You're right.
super strong. And it that feels more like almost I don't know, like season 1 and 2 and 3, it's always like it's coming to them and they've got to deal with it and like they're trying to
Right.
figure out what's going on or why it's happening again. So it
Right.
is a different dynamic this year. Like we're next year or 2 years from now, they got to figure out story wise because now they're all going to be together. They might split them up a little
Right.
bit, but I bet they'll be together
I
more so
doubt
than
it.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially at the end.
And a
Obviously,
whole season of them none of them being together. I feel like everyone's
yeah,
tired
and
of
they
that.
still
I mean,
won, which I do think is kind of a narrative stumble a little bit.
I
There
agree.
is something if you,
It's just that
yeah,
thing of like everyone's on their way to Hawkins, and then everyone that was on their way doesn't get there, but still
yeah,
finds a way to help them win, which is a little bit like, it's
it
just
is. Again,
it
it's
felt
weird
like
that
we
we
were
like,
building to the big reunion for the battle, and then we didn't get the reunion, but we still got the battle, and effectively they accomplished the same thing if they had been together. So
Yeah, I mean, there's even though it might be contrived or whatever, there's something about somehow Dustin lets Hopper and them know that hey, if you do this, you'll help. Like, oh, there's Demogorgons there, kill them. It'll help fight
yeah, how
Vecna.
did they
They're,
even know that like Elle was fighting them right now? Like, how are they aware of that?
they knew that the kids were um I don't remember. I know it.
Actually,
I know
I mean,
there's a,
how did they know? Oh, now we have to do this now. Like, this is we
it was
don't
just
have time. We're
they
just
knew
gonna
that the
do
kids
this
were in
to
trouble, and
distract
they
them.
assumed that because the past 3 seasons that meant they were dealing with like the upside down and bad shit. That
Yeah,
like if we did this, I mean, it was very convenient. I mean, like they could have
it's
been dead
weak.
for already for all they knew, but I mean, like it was
What
very.
it's
That's
just
what I'm
like,
saying.
how
You
did you?
needed that conversation of like Dustin using
Yeah, yes,
his thing, his
yes,
radio thing to contact somebody,
and
and
that could
it's
have
like
worked. Well, I don't know if a radio broadcast can go from Russia to Indiana, but
it is if Elle uses her powers to amplify
yeah, or
them.
if it goes through the upside down somehow.
There you go.
I
See,
mean,
we
I
just
was
wrote it.
honestly expecting them to like find whatever portal these guys had come out of and like go into the upside down and like get to Hawkins that way. Like find some like, kind of
Loophole.
wormhole to Hawkins through the upside down. Because that seems to be what
Pretty
happened with
sweet.
Hopper. I mean, he just like went inside a thing and Hawkins and ended up in Russia.
It's
You know
true.
what I mean?
True.
So that was what I was kind of expecting at one point.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I don't know. Again, that's weak, but I'm very curious. Like to me, like again, yes, there are issues with this season. I think that the sum 100% outweighs the parts on this one,
Agreed.
but it does bring in the question of like how can they wrap this up? It's always the strict. It's like we know we've seen it. We've seen Game of Thrones be like one of the
Hmm.
greatest shows of all time and stumble. But we've seen other shows like Breaking Bad, just in my opinion, just fucking nail it. And
Yep.
I don't know. Like I'm curious.
Lost.
They can
Nailed.
only.
Okay.
I like Loss's ending. I
I
totally see
did
all
too.
the.
I'm a lost apologist. I defend it.
Yeah, I know all the criticisms, but I am too. I'm a lost apologist. Yeah, which is typically not my kind of ending, but I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They're literally an uphill battle.
Well, you brought up a great point.
Running
I think
uphill.
that like every every season has been a mystery,
Yeah,
right? Like, where is Will Byers? That was season 1. Where did he go? What
right.
happened to him? Season 2 is I can't remember, but there's another mystery. Like every season we're like,
Well,
we know
it's
that
where's
bad guys are
Elle?
back,
It's
but
what's wrong with
what are they
Will?
doing? What's its plan? Why is it trying to do this? Like, how do we figure out what's actually going on?
Yeah,
And there's
there's no
always the
mystery
moment
anymore.
where like Dustin explains everything based on like D&D lore or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that seems to be likely not at all a part of next season. Like I don't see a logical reason why they have any mystery. Like they know exactly what's going on. They know exactly what they have to do. I mean, I guess if they have somewhat like stalled Vecna's plans, like there's going to be somewhat of a plot of like, well, what's he going to do now to like, what's his plan B or what's his like his left hook here? How is he going to like
I just
finish
really
the
feel like
job? Or
there's going to be some type of MacGuffin next season. I
what? I
just
mean,
don't know.
I worry. What if it's just gonna like he's just trying to finish killing Max? Like that's like he's like finding ways to like sneak into the hospital and just because if he kills Max, it all goes through. Like it finally like it fully splits open or something.
I don't know. That seems kind of lame.
I agree, but I also
I feel
kind of
like
feels
Dustin's
likely.
gonna like. There's gonna be something where there's something he could get that makes him more powerful, so he can break through finally, or he does break through,
Yeah,
and it's like, I feel like it's gonna be another. It's gonna have to be like a D&D explanation. There's something in
sure.
there of the team finding something, and they're using their powers together to stop this thing because they
Right.
win together because of love. I just feel like it's gonna be a MacGuffin. I don't know why. I just keep feeling like that. It feels like that's the only
I
classical
hope
route
not.
they
I
could
really
go.
hope not. I hope it's character driven, character based. That's
Yeah, I
just going to
mean,
be.
but
I
what do
think
you?
I
I mean, I
hope.
don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what you do honestly on this one.
I mean, it really is. I mean, there's a version of season 5 that's like 5 episodes. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? That's like
it's like the
real
ending.
short,
Yeah,
just like you know, final. Like basically, it's the Return of the King version of Stranger Things.
and
Let's just
and they said that
let's
they
just
said
do the
that
battles.
they said we're going to do like a lot of endings. They said that already. They said it's going to be really
Yeah,
long.
well,
the
and
last.
they did say like this season had like 5 endings, and I agree, and I think that was actually not a strong part of it. I felt like there were several scenes in the end that just did not feel worth it. Like a lot of the stuff where they were helping at like the donation center. The only good part of that was when Dustin talked to Eddie's dad. That was the only part that felt like worthy enough to really be in there.
I actually kind of felt like that was redundant. I felt like we'd already had that with with Eddie, like Dustin and Eddie. That I felt like we had that
Well,
scene
but we hadn't
twice
had,
now.
but I do get it. Like Daddy's dad was just like left to like think his son was a serial killer and like disappeared.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
like
I get it.
it
I
was
just
some
kind of felt
nice
like it
close.
was.
It was a sweet moment from Dustin to like give Eddie's dad some closure. And I get that like it would almost feel a little mean to just leave his dad's character like just floating in the wind, like having no
Well,
idea
it's
what
mean
happened.
until you
But you could
address it in
also
season
do
5.
something with that in season 5. Exactly. You
Yeah,
could do something with that.
it's a great thing to bring. And you could have even had, if you hadn't killed the jock, what a great pairing that would have been, the jock and the dad.
I agree.
Or the uncle, I guess. No, I
And I
mean,
think the
again,
jock, he was a good actor. The jock,
he was.
he played the hateable character very well.
Oh, he was a great villain. He was a great villain. He was like the
Just
general
classic
to
80s
Vecna.
bully kind of guy. Like
Yeah,
popular
nailed it.
kid bully kid. Like he nailed it. He really nailed it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm super intrigued, and I really do feel like we have 2 years to wait for this.
When are
So
they
I
have they
think
talked about when they're going into production for it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they've. I mean, they've had to have had like treatments or at least stories,
Yeah.
ideas written down. Like they have to know that
I
by
thought they
now.
were filming these seasons back to back.
I would love to know. I mean, I really don't think Travis is messaging us about the boys. That's also next week, guys. Podcast. Um, I don't know. I'm curious. I mean, I don't think it's anywhere close
This
to
is
actual
one
production.
Oh, they're starting in August.
Really?
They're starting writing in August.
Okay, that's what I thought.
did.
I thought I heard writing. Yeah.
This is one that feels like if you were going to shoot 2 seasons back to back, this one was the one to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like just in terms of where the season ends and what's coming in the next one. Like if there's a time jump is going to be weird. If like it's like 2 years later and the cracks are still there, just no one lives there. And it's like, I mean, I guess like 2 years later, it's now like Area 51, basically, right? Like the government's treating it as like this like crazy
and a time
high
jump
secret.
could be 6
thing.
months. It could be a year. I mean, who knows? I mean,
You're right. That feels like not enough of a time jump to almost call it a time jump, but I guess it is.
I mean, there was a thing about like they're going to time jump enough where like it matches up the actor's
I heard
age.
that.
But I was looking at their age, and I was
That's like
like, oh, these
years.
guys. I was like, these guys are much younger than I thought they were. I thought these guys are like early 20s now. Like a lot of them are still like 17 and 18.
Yeah.
And I guess they were really young when and it makes sense when they were shot this, but like I mean they're like 16
10,
and 17. Yeah, I mean they're like all like I don't know how are they in 10th grade, 9th grade in high school? Or like I mean they're probably like 14, 15. So they're not too far off.
You know what? I think Lucas. I think they're like freshmen in high school, maybe because he's like a freshman, like on the basketball team. Like
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he was.
That makes
a freshman.
sense. So they're 9th grade, yeah. So like
the first year of high school.
So they're like 14, 13, 14. So like I mean it could be a 3-year time jump for you. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, or maybe the time jump. Maybe when they say that, that just means like that happens at the end of the season, like the epilogue goes into a time jump kind of thing.
maybe.
You know,
Oh,
and I
question.
do wonder. We know we're getting a spinoff, right? So I would
was
assume
gonna say,
something
yeah.
in this season sets up the spinoff. And I'm really,
You know what?
you've seen the quotes. I don't know if you have. They're like, oh yeah, we're seeing the theories about like a Dustin Steve spinoff or these kinds of things. They're kind of shutting those down, like saying that's not what we're gonna do. We're doing something wildly different, kind of thing. Yeah, they're probably right. I mean, I think that's obviously what everyone wants is just more Dustin and Steve, but that probably actually doesn't work that great in just complete isolation. You know what I mean? Unless you make it like this 30-minute Ash versus the Evil Dead type show that's just them beating shit up. You know, like we're not worried about character development. We're not worried. Like let's just put on spectacle, right? That could work. But
yeah, I mean, I think the big thing too is, I mean, it scares me just because, like the boys, it is wrapping up. Like, I mean, season 3 just ended right this morning.
Is 4 confirmed as the end?
No, I don't know. I don't know. It
Okay.
could. I mean, hell, season 3 could have ended, honestly. But I just, they're making another boys spinoff, and then I'm honestly like, I get it. These properties, these
Everyone
streaming
wants an
services,
MCU.
they want
Everyone
like
wants
all these
a
different things.
universe.
They want to kind of capitalize. But like, it's very rare that the spinoff shows are as impressive or whatever as the original show. Like typically
Oh
those
yeah.
characters are, and also they
The
typically deal with
Simpsons is
like,
the one of the outliers.
yeah, typically these the first shows or first seasons or whatever, they deal with like the big, almost like ending event. It's almost like the MCU. Like the first 3 phases is like this big cohesive kind of thing, and
Uh-huh.
now we're like doing all these spin-off stuff, and it's kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's not as fun or interesting almost, and
It's not as tight.
it's
It's
not as
not as
tight.
like yeah, a little
Well,
more
even
messy.
that, it's like we've already done the big thing, so it's like, how do you even make that work within the context of the universe?
Of course. Right.
So like even Stranger Things, like if this happens season 5, it's like, what do they do? Like that's like, it's also interesting, but also like they're gonna have to be as big eventually as big as season 5 of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
And also they're just
It,
producing. I think they're wanting to do different
yeah.
things. I mean, like
Well, they
like
opened up
it,
their own studio, the Upside Down Productions or whatever.
which I thought was
Um,
surprising that they basically. I mean, they're doing like Death Note and everything else, but I was kind of like, oh,
yeah.
they're still dipping their toes in, and I was kind of like, I mean, maybe it's just a money thing, but I
Well, and I
was
think
kind
2 months ago we were talking about how Netflix just lost 200,000 subscribers and how like
of, oh,
everyone's predicting their doom. And now a month later,
which is
Netflix has
crazy.
set the record twice for the most streaming minutes in a week,
That's
like
why I mean
with the
that
same show.
I was saying this
You know,
earlier is like a 200,000. I get it. Like whenever you're in those investor calls, like one
it seems
subscriber
like a
for like
lot.
it seems like a lot, but it's not. They're still number
It's not.
one. Like they're still when you're that high up, there's only so many people on the planet right now. Like
Yeah, I mean, in Netflix,
there's a future, Daniel, where like Netflix are the bad guys and they're trying to genetically grow more humans to get more subscribers. Like
that's a
that.
great movie concept. We need to
I'm
run
just
with
saying.
that. Um,
Yeah, that's a thing.
yeah,
It's going
no,
to
you're
happen
right. You're right.
probably.
It's like The Matrix, but Netflix. Um,
Yeah, yeah, you're
that's a
right.
great
It
like
is.
short film, like just like funny, spoofy short film.
Yeah, you're
Um,
right. 100%.
but I think you know it's difficult because it feels like it's been so long. But like the streaming wars, right, have only been going on for like 5 or 6 years. Like
If that.
Netflix was the first one there, and they were like in the game before anyone was aware of the game. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like I know
yeah.
Hulu was around
They
pretty
started the
early,
game.
and
Yeah,
Prime Video came in pretty quickly after that. But like if you look at the streaming wars timeline, Stranger Things is Netflix's ace in the hole.
it
Stranger
is now.
Things
Yes,
began like the like streaming content taking over the world of like the zeitgeist of conversation. Like I feel like what was the big streaming hit before Stranger Things? I don't think there was
I
one.
felt like it
Like
was
that,
House of Cards. Like House of Cards was huge.
when
Like
did that start though?
it wasn't
It's
worldwide like Stranger Things is, because like
You're right.
that's a
Well,
universal
and House
thing.
of
But like
Cards
House of
is
Cards was kind of like their big,
You're
like
right.
this is.
That's true. But I will
Yeah,
say House of Cards is definitely for an older demographic. 2013 was
yeah.
House of Cards. You're right.
You're right. You're right.
So
You're right.
Stranger Things is geared more for younger people. Not
And
not
it's
completely, but
universal.
it's built for more. Yes, it's built for like kids 12 and 13 can watch Stranger Things and love it. They're not going to love House of Cards.
No,
Um,
no.
and so that benefits them. But I do think like as far and you're right, House of Cards was big, but it wasn't this big. It wasn't this big. It was not this like like when there's going to
It
be
wasn't.
merchandise out the wazoo for Stranger
Oh, there
Things, you
is.
know, like
I bought a pizza the other
so
day and I didn't even realize it, but
yeah,
it had Stranger Things on the side. I was like, whoa, this has Stranger Things on the side of it. Yeah,
right, exactly. So I think it's like this is like in weird ways, Stranger Things is somewhat of like a godfather of like the streaming wars. I like when Stranger Things comes out, like The Boys is out right now. The Boys is huge for Amazon Prime. That's like their big thing. But
that's
everyone's
good.
talking more about Stranger Things than The Boys. Even though The Boys is coming up, like Stranger Things still feels like the dominant topic.
Yeah.
And
I do feel like The Boys is, this is a conversation we'll have next week, but
yeah,
like, especially with this season, it's becoming like a contender for like, oh, you have to watch The Boys this week kind of thing. Like it's
yeah,
really
and so
interesting.
And maybe that's, we may be singing a different tune the next time that Stranger Things and Boys comes out at the same time, and
Yeah,
maybe
I
that
don't
Boys
think the boys
starts
will ever
being a bit more
reach that
competitive.
will ever reach that
And again, it's the same
space.
demographic thing. Like 12, you're not going to show that to
Yeah,
10-year-olds. They're going to get
exactly.
traumatized.
Well,
And so, yeah, not 10-year-old Donovan. 10-year-old Donovan would have seen all that stuff anyway.
dude,
In all the
3-year-old
movies and
Donovan would have saw that stuff. So
stuff.
not
Yeah.
a problem over here in this household.
But yeah, it
Yeah,
is interesting because like Stranger Things is this like powerhouse, and every time they come out, the world seems to stop, and everyone is a Stranger Things fan again, and no one's worried about Netflix every time a Stranger Things comes out.
that's why. I
So
mean, I
it's
always
interesting.
said this where like Netflix kind of comes in every 6 to 8 months and like drops a
Yeah,
banger, and then that's all we talk about
yeah,
for a month, and then
and it's
like
interesting because
the other 11 months we're like, man, Netflix is like fixing to
yeah,
lose, and HBO and Disney is winning, and then they drop another thing, and we're like,
and there's an
everything's great again.
interesting comparison with Disney because Disney is dropping stuff constantly that
They
should be
really
great,
are. Yeah,
but they are not hitting the heights. Like they have not. I love Mandalorian season 1 and 2. I don't think it's as good as Stranger Things season 4. I'm a Star Wars fanboy to death, but like as far as the emotional highs, the fuck yeah moments, the kind of like I mean, like again,
I'm
there's
thinking
probably like
really hard.
50 memes that are going to come out of this final episode that will become just a part of the zeitgeist. There's already the one with Eddie and the tape that's like now he's like, I saw someone showing a meme where he was holding the Halo 2 disc and was like, this is music. Stuff like that.
That's great. That's great.
It is.
He's not wrong.
No.
I think you're right. I think season 4 of Stranger Things is better than Mando 1 and 2. And there's some,
And
and
I
like
just think,
just because it's a longer story, it's like more woven together. Mando's,
yeah.
they feel more like episodic, right? And they do
And it's
tie
just,
together.
the
But
characters aren't as deep.
it's
You've got a
different.
character behind a mask and a character that doesn't talk as your main characters. Like they're
Yeah,
just, you can't do as much emotionally with that.
it's great
So
Star Wars content, which makes me sad
it
saying that
is.
like Star Wars is like, it makes me, when I said that, it makes it sound
I,
like
I agree, but
like
you're kind of
the
right.
bar for Star Wars isn't that high anymore. I don't know. So
It's not.
I mean,
Unfortunately, that's just the truth. The
you know,
bar
I
of Star
started
Wars
watching.
isn't high right
We've got
now,
to
and
get off
that's
here, but I
kind
started
of
watching
disappointing.
that supercut the fan did of Obi-Wan Kenobi last night. I got like 20 minutes in, and I was like, man, this is better. This is
I'm
better.
sure it is. Yeah, no, it's just an interesting comparison to look like. Everyone is like Disney Plus taking over, and they're putting out content. There's like a 2-week gap before the next big show comes out every time. The next
They got a
movie or
smart
something.
strategy for sure.
But it is like they're putting so much energy and putting like this amount of content out that none of it feels like A tier, like S tier. None of it
I
feels
think
like this
I
is
thought
must
Moon Knight
watch like Stranger
was a
Things is.
solid
What was?
MCU thing. Moon Knight was solid.
It is solid, but again, it's not like Stranger Things. Now, if you have not watched Stranger Things, you going online, you're just going to be out of the loop. You know what I mean? Everyone, it's
Sure.
just in every circle. It's in every website,
You're right.
every meme.
You're right.
It's dominating, and it's like that was never the case with any of the Disney Plus shows. And
I don't know.
WandaVision was maybe the closest to it.
And Loki both had these like
It did.
they
It had big
felt like
conversations.
it was just like, yeah, big conversations for those for sure.
And those were kind of big moments in like the universe too. But I just think you're right. Netflix goes a year to 6 months with it just feels like nothing but shit on their service, right? But then
also,
they
to be
have a
fair,
Squid Game, and then they have
Netflix,
Stranger Things.
To be fair, Netflix is pumping out like 15 times more content than Disney Plus.
You're right.
It's just that, but they only have one big thing every 6 months.
Netflix is putting out more, but they have so much more that's like bottom tier. But then they have like every now and again like S tier must watch shows, and Disney doesn't have like Disney doesn't get as shit as Netflix does at like their lowest level of content.
Never.
They're good. Their content's much better than like the worst stuff you can find on Netflix, but they also don't reach the same highs. And it's just.
And then you have HBO Max kind of coming there doing Barry. I mean, I think
HBO's kind of their own
Succession.
I feel like they don't make as much. They don't do nearly as much original content, but if they make it, it's fucking awesome. Usually, if they make it, it's probably going to be good, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, think this year alone, we had Peacemaker, we had Barry, I mean, like I know that's pretty solid. Like just that alone. That's
Yeah, I
not
mean,
counting all
Succession
the
is
other.
huge.
I just finished
There's a
season 1 of
point.
Succession. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, I've been watching it with my wife as well.
I wish I was
But
binging it all weekend actually, but I'm not. Um, which brings me to this. I do have to get off here. So Daniel, how can our listeners
Sure.
write into us?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/2for1mail. Love to hear what you think of Stranger Things Season 4, Part 2, or the whole season. What do you think they're going to go with for Season 5? Any of your thoughts. And you know what? Maybe we'll read them on the show. bit.ly/2for1mail.
And of course, if you can't hit up our Bitly, you can always comment in the comment section below, assuming you're on YouTube, youtube.com/2for1studios, the best place to consume the content. Of course, the podcast goes up there first as we're doing it live right now. Or you can always wait a day or an hour or whenever I feel like it and watch it on any of your favorite podcast services. Again,
You can
2 for
tell
1
we're
Joe.
live because of the sign behind Donovan. That's how
It
you
says
know.
it says on air. Yeah,
Signs don't lie. It's illegal for signs to
they
lie.
do,
So
it is. It's a yeah. Yeah, exactly.
felony. Yeah,
It's capital punishment. I heard.
that's
Um,
right. Straight to jail.
Anyway, I'm so glad we talked about this show. I felt like we were more critical
Yeah.
than I thought we'd be, but like I think it's because we're just nitpicking. I still think it's amazing. I loved it. I loved watching it. And I'm excited to see how they wrap it up and if they
Yeah.
can stick the ending. So I'm curious.
100%.
Daniel, I'll catch you next week. We'll be talking Thor: Love and Thunder, and in a different episode, we'll be talking The Boys season 3. And I can't wait to talk about both those. There's both gonna be great conversations. So
Lots of interesting thoughts. Yes,
yeah, and
indeed.
then after that, we got Miss Marvel, and then of course we have Dr. Bruce Hutchinson back to talk The Prestige, which I'm
Can't
also
wait.
excited about. It's gonna be super fun. Anyway,
Can't wait.
Daniel, my name is Donovan Thompson,
I am Daniel Wingfield.
and we have spoken.